Here we go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast. We are celebrating International Women's Day during National Athletic Training Month. I've got a previous podcast guest, Sarah Gill. She has brought two of her friends, colleagues, athletic trainers to kind of share. We've got Janae Fletcher and Dr. Jolene Henning. And Dr. Henning is having some internet issues, so hopefully I'll be bringing her in as we talk. But Sarah is pretty much going to run the show today. So I am Jeremy Jackson, your host, and this is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/Women's Day. So it's WOMENS Day, because putting an apostrophe in the link title is pretty difficult. So it's Women's Day, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/Women's Day. So I'll have some of the answers to their questions or anything that any links that they mention, or a way to contact them. So without much further ado, Sarah, once you get right to it, you can introduce your guests, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Like you said, my name is Sarah Gill. You might remember me from episode 505 discussing return to learn for concussion. That is my current role, resident concussion nerd in Dallas, Texas, athletic trainer for the Texas Health Sports Concussion Center. Jeremy and I have discussed many times my love of podcasts. I'm a female athletic trainer, so my qualifications to host today are clear to go ahead and take this over. And I'm super, super excited to be talking to just two friends of mine, people I consider friends, colleagues for 12 years now. I've known these ladies for better or for worse. Hi, Jolene.
Hi.
Introduce them to you now. So this is super exciting for me. These are two women that I just have tons of respect and love for, but really don't get to talk to that much. So this is a real treat for me. So let me introduce you to Janae Fletcher. Janae is a proud UNC Chapel Hill alum. Go Tar Heels. We were classmates at UNCG. Yes, she was a year ahead of me, but I still consider her my classmate. She's currently completing her educational doctorate in kinesiology, also from University of North Carolina at Greensboro. After finishing up at UNCG, she was the assistant athletic trainer at Davidson for several years. She is best friends with Steph Curry. You can ask her all those questions. She's been serving as the head athletic trainer at North Carolina A&T University for almost 9 years, back in her hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina. So Janae and I have shared many a karaoke night, many an NATA happy hour. We've entertained each other at track meets. We've shared some other really great life events together. But more than anything, she's an athletic trainer that I have tons of respect and admiration for, and I'm pumped to talk to you. Janae, what's up?
Not much. Thank you, Sarah. Happy to be here. Happy to be a part of it.
Good. Awesome to talk to you. Okay, and so now we got to bring in somebody who's been a huge influence on both of our careers. While Janae and I were completing our masters at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, our captain at the helm was Dr. Jolene Henning. She was the Jolene. I've got your resume here. I'm going to try and
read that. Please don't read that.
No, I'm just kidding. Not going to go too far. Don't worry. But she did serve as the program director at the entry-level master's program at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro for, I think 7 years, Jolene?
Yep.
And obviously launched some pretty great careers out of there. Not just me and Janae, but some other pretty awesome kids. Before that, she did complete her bachelor's in sports medicine at Catawba College, her master's at University of Virginia. She completed her educational doctorate in adult and higher education at Ball State University. And she is currently serving as the Provost Smith Chair of Athletic Training at High Point University. She has been a certified athletic trainer since 1996, and obviously has some great perspective to share on these issues. So, Dr. Jolene Henning.
Hi, I'm good. Please don't call me Dr. Henning.
I'm going to call you Dr. Henning for the rest of the day, okay? So don't worry about that. Just wanted to get that out of the way.
One and done.
We won't go no Joe Mama or any of that today. I promise we won't do that. But yeah, so, Jolene, you were somebody who obviously was a huge influence on all the kids that you worked with. And again, this is International Women's Day. We're going to have a very lady-centric chat today. We're all sitting here with our, cosmopolitans on a patio. We're having a very lady day. We're going to be talking about girl stuff. So basically everything that I'm going to ask you about, let's think of it from that perspective. Okay. So, as my program director, you really taught me a lot about not just the ins and outs of athletic training, but professionalism, kind of what it meant to present yourself. When you were sort of starting out your career, was there somebody that you looked to as that example? And just sort of how did you picture the development of kind of how you wanted to start and shape your career? And was there somebody that was an influence on you for that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have to think back to being an undergraduate, and my program director was a woman, and her name was Cindy Lauer. She's retired at this point, but she was a ball of energy, and she very much was in a man's world. And I watched her interact with a very headstrong male head athletic trainer. And she was literally like 4'11". Okay. When she walked in a room, you knew that she was there because she commanded this presence and this level of respect, because she knew her stuff. And she just was somebody that was not gonna, not be stepped on, be pushed around. And I feel like she fought for us too, as women in the field. She wasn't somebody that was, super involved professionally with, committees and associations and things like that. But at our home base kind of thing, she fought for us. And I can remember times when I went to her, with some questions about behaviors that I had observed in the athletic training room, that even as a student, as an undergrad, as a 19-year-old, I knew probably wasn't okay. And she didn't hesitate.
We're going to talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that as well.
She did not hesitate to go right to the head athletic trainer who was in that space every day and question it and say, enough. Whatever's happening in this space is on your watch, and it needs to stop. So she definitely stands out. It's interesting because I actually don't feel like I've had a lot of female role models early in my career. I really didn't. In fact, all of my, I guess, kind of formal mentors were all men, which is interesting in and of itself. And it's something that I kind of try to be cognizant of when I'm working with students now, that they need to see and hear from somebody that has the same kind of value system that they do, and can demonstrate how to balance things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Janae, you're somebody who, is in that little bit of a boys club. You've been the head athletic trainer at a, Division I football, collegiate university for 9 years now. How's that been for you? What advice would you give to, well, first of all, let me ask you this, because I like to start from the beginning. Did you picture yourself in that kind of a role when we were in school and you were thinking about what you wanted to do? Was that a goal of yours? Was that something that you pictured for yourself?
It was definitely a long-term goal. It happened a lot sooner than I had expected or planned for.
A wonderkin.
Huh?
So you're a wonderkin, just jumping right in there.
Yeah, it was definitely unexpected when I got the head position at A&T, but it was one that I had to take and move with it. And it was during a time of a little bit of turmoil within our athletic department, and I will say definitely I was challenged, particularly with our male coaches. There was a lot of challenges coming from that respect. I would say administration-wise, not as much. I was fortunate in that aspect, but just dealing with male coaches in particular sports, it was very difficult, especially those first several years. And, it just took a lot of standing my ground and making sure that, I had the best interests of our student athletes in mind with any decisions I was making, and making sure that I stayed true to that. And it took some time. It took several years, but after a while, I finally got some of those coaches to come around and realize, okay, hey, this is how it's going to be. I'm not, they're not able to push over, be a pushover or that sort of thing. So it definitely took some work. And I was fortunate in my previous position at Davidson that I had a female head athletic trainer, and I was able to see how she kind of handled being in that position and the role that she played with our coaches, and being a strong female in that setting. And so something that I was able to kind of carry over when I kind of got thrown in that position unexpectedly. So.
Did you feel like the pushback or the challenge, of kind of getting them to accept or respect you do you think that had to do with you being a woman, being young,
absolutely.
being new, all of the above?
Or definitely being a woman.
Most
definitely being a woman. I think that it was a situation of them not wanting a female telling them what they can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really think that was 100% what it was. And it just took some time for them to realize I wasn't going anywhere, and that we were going to do things a certain way. We were going to protect our student athletes. And so, with time, I think I gained that respect. But yeah, I think it kind of trickled to the newer coaches as they came in as well. So
they knew it was up when they got there. Jolene, is that something that you guys talk to? So, Jolene's been in the educational side of things for a long time now, both in obviously being a program director, teaching classes, doing the research regarding, clinical instructors, and, she's been very influential on what goes into the BOC. I mean, like you've got this whole educational side that you've been a huge influence on. Is that something that you talk to with your female students in particular about how to navigate that setting? Because at the end of the day, a lot of our athletes are still going into those more traditional settings. Is that something that you guys talk to your female students about, how to navigate that?
It is, but I think it's kind of morphed over the years, to be honest with you, because I think that this current generation of future athletic trainers are much more aware of the challenges of women and minorities in general. And so we have bigger conversations, not just focused with female students, but we talk about a lot of different things, from, thinking about cultural competency and just overall, the idea of whole person healthcare.
Absolutely.
And so as clinicians, what you bring to the table as a whole person has to be part of that conversation. But I can remember very clearly probably saying it to both of you when you were in our program of, you're not being a bitch, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
And I still find myself saying that to female students in particular when I see that they're a little bit more timid in kind of a take charge emergency situation, where this is not a suggestion that you're making to someone. You are telling them what to do, and you have to take ownership in that. And so making sure that they understand the value of their voice in those situations. But then just in general, we talk a lot about, with all students, the need to demonstrate respect and putting the needs of the patient first. And I think that goes a long way. Now, I think our students still face challenges when they go out. I don't think they face as many challenges when they're out on rotations, because I think we can be more selective now than what we used to be able to. And so if we get the sense that, a preceptor is not on board with our way of thinking about equity, then we won't use them.
Yeah. Well, and Janae, as somebody who, you're a preceptor, you have students who work with you. You guys don't have an ATEP program currently, but you do work with a lot of ATEP students. I mean, so for your perspective, when you've got those young women who are in your athletic training room, what do you see as your role in both sort of, I don't want to say protecting, but I do want to say, making sure that it is a positive experience for them in particular. And again, sort of shaping that professional side of things for them.
I mean, I don't think I have to protect them as much. I make sure they're in a comfortable environment, and they know if there's anything that, is out of the norm, they know that they can come to myself or the rest of our staff and express any concerns that they might have. But from an athletic training perspective, I always tell them exude confidence. And I think that's going to help them, if they're firm in what they, their assessment or their treatment plan, to exude confidence. And when they're exuding that confidence, then they're going to gain that level of respect from the patients that they're working with, from the coaches that they're, maybe interacting with. And I think that's something that's important for them, moving forward once they graduate and get out into the field, is being comfortable interacting with others and being confident in their knowledge and in their skills, and knowing that they can do these things. And, not allowing anyone to second guess themselves. I would say right now I even have someone on my staff, and she's a newly certified athletic trainer, first year out. And I feel like that's conversations I have with her, because she's a very bright individual. She knows her stuff, but I think she looks for the okay sometimes, or, somebody to say, it's okay if I do that. It's okay if I do that. And I tell her, you know your stuff. You don't have to ask for permission, make your assessment, treat that athlete. You don't need to, look to someone else to confirm your decisions, because you're very bright and intelligent, and I trust what you're doing. But I think that comes, and she's working with a male sport. And so I think she kind of seeks that sometimes, and just kind of pushing, for those individuals just to be more confident.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do think, Sarah, though, one of the things that I've observed, both when I was at UNCG working with graduate students there, and now at High Point working with graduate students again, because when I came here, we were still at the undergraduate level.
Right.
And we transitioned to the master's. And I do think that there's a huge difference between the level of maturity that a graduate student brings into that clinical environment, and the kinds of conversations that are necessary with a graduate student might be very different than with an undergraduate student, because putting a 19-year-old in an environment clinically with an all-male sport, there's a different level of maturity there. For that woman to handle it appropriately, as well as the expectations that or the assumptions that may come from a male athlete, because they are much more likely to interact socially as well, and those lines get blurry. And so there are conversations that I found myself having with those students that I don't have to have with the graduate students, because they're there for a very different reason, educationally. And I don't want to say that in a way that implies that an undergraduate female student has some ulterior motive. That is not at all what I'm suggesting.
Right.
They have, and I was one of those students, years ago. But you have to have those conversations of understanding what you're going into, and assumptions that may be made about you. Not that they're true or accurate, but those assumptions may still be there from a student athlete perspective, from a coaching perspective, and just being more hyper vigilant about how you're perceived. And it's unfortunate, but it is also reality.
Absolutely.
A woman could say the same thing as a man, and it would be taken completely differently. I deal with that today in my current role. I could say the same exact thing as a male colleague, and I would be viewed very differently for it.
It's a really important point that I learned, again, from working with you guys. I kind of have ran the spectrum of my experiences. I was an undergrad student intern, and then I was a grad student. And even for me personally, those two experiences, were just sort of night and day. When, like you said, when you're 21 and you're literally in the same classes as these guys, the temptation to kind of, cross over in terms of even just, socially, not even like personally or anything like that, it gets a little confusing, whereas that wasn't even an issue at all when we were at the grad school. There was no temptation to hang out with a 20-year-old when we were, in grad school. But, and now I've had the experience of working with high school kids, which I do think a lot of the listeners of this podcast are, high school athletic trainers. And so, kind of, want to take it even back to there a little bit. Now we're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old, young women. And, when I was at my high school, we didn't travel with a lot of the teams. So we would probably, we would put 2 or 3, young female athletic trainers, athletic training students on a bus full of JV football players, and off they would go. And we had to trust that they were going to make good decisions. We had to trust that that those football players would be respectful. And that was a conversation that we had with them was, look, the word I would use is I'd probably go ahead and use the word unfair and double standard, but just letting them know, like there just are certain things that you have to be aware of in terms of your behaviors, in terms of your the things that you say, not because of exactly what you just said, Jolene, not because of what you actually mean, but because how it can be interpreted. And if you get a reputation as, we've all heard the expressions, jersey chaser, cleat chaser, you know, that kind of stuff. As soon as you get that reputation, you lose all of your privileges. You don't get to go on the trips. You don't get to do the thing you enjoy. And then, you know, and I know I had some undergrad students when I was at Appalachian State that I would, you know, have that conversation with them. Like, look, there's a lot of girls in here who are here for, you know, the right reasons, doing the best they can to pursue this career. And I am genuinely not sure that you are. And the fact that you are, you know, because again, you don't have to be, right? I'm getting a bachelor's degree. I can go do whatever I want with this when I'm done. I can enjoy being an athletic trainer and then go to PT school or go do something completely different. This isn't the end all be all for me, so I'm not so worried about that. I did have young ladies that I interacted with like that. I probably had dudes that were the same way. They just wanted to, you know, party and go to football games. But all that to say, it's, you know, you're not thinking about the long term. You're not thinking about, I want to be a head athletic trainer someday, and these people are going to be my references, you know, so I need to make sure I make that good impression. So I think, you know, just imparting that on these young ladies is so important for reasons that they haven't even thought about yet. And it's tough. It's tough for them.
I think it's even harder for them this day and age because of social media, though.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
We have, you know, we have guidelines of, you know, don't friend anybody that is a patient or a potential patient, you know, on Facebook. And I know kids these days, like Facebook is old school, is what my doctor tells me. I'm not up to this generation. He tells me that all the time. But whatever the platform is, like it's so tempting to interact in that way. And so they have a lot more social pressure than we ever did, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me feel 100, but it's very true. I got on Facebook at UNC that undergrads had to tell me what it was, and that MySpace was out. So yeah, we've come a long way, baby. We definitely have. Okay, I'm gonna switch gears just a tiny little bit here, but it's in the same, you know, perspective. We're talking about our careers. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the NATA salary survey that came out here recently. It probably shouldn't be shocking. I guess it still does, you know, kind of gin me up a little bit. So I feel like when I started, the ratio of men to women in the NATA was right around 50-50. It's now creeped up to, we are 55% women in the NATA. And, you know, that NATA salary survey had a bunch of, you know, interesting stats in it, but the one just giant, you know, 2-bar graph was average salary for men, average salary for women. Yeah. And there's still a nice, you know, about $10,000 a year gap in there. So, Jolene, can you explain how an organization that is 55% women is still a boys club? And can you go ahead and talk that for us? You got any ideas there?
I wish that I did, because I don't know. I don't get it. And someone who's in a hiring position, I can tell you personally that I've experienced discrepancies in my own contracts and compared to male colleagues. And it makes me sick. I don't have an answer for it. Yeah. But I can tell you what still is a challenge for women, myself included, is being confident and saying, I'm worth more than that.
Asking for it.
Asking for it. Absolutely. I actually took a different route recently, a few years ago. So when I was hired here, I was hired for a 12-month contract, and I asked to have it reduced to 10 months. And the surprising response I got was, well, do you want more money? And I paused and I said, you know, actually, I don't. I want more time.
Yeah.
And so I got an 11-month contract instead of 12. It didn't go all the way down to 10, but I think I'm at a different point in my career where that time is even more important to me than additional money, because I have young kids.
I was about to say, I definitely wanted to get into the fact that Jolene is a mom of 2, and just kind of curious, you know, how that, do you think that does play into some of this? Because some of the graphs we look at, you know, it stays almost like the salaries aren't that different in like, you know, in the age range up to about 35. Like the gap, it seems like the gap starts changing right around, you know, 30, you know, the age of 36 to 45. And I'm wondering if that's like, do you think that's related to, you know, having a family? Do you think we start losing our women that should be getting in like Janae's position are dropping out because they are, you know, or they're not going for that head job because they're just going to stay at this lower level because they've got the kids, or, you know, that kind of thing is, you know.
Yeah. As much as I would hate to say that's not the case, just seeing, you know, what the conversations that I see on like the Women in Athletic Trainers Facebook page. And I do think we see a lot of women that kind of leave the profession. Unfortunately, there was an interesting graph. I'm going to try and pull it up. Hopefully, can you still see me?
I can see you.
Okay, perfect. Because I was gonna, I had looked at that data right before, because there's a really interesting graph near the end of the document that looked at the percentage of women based on age categories.
Yeah.
Oh.
And where did it?
By gender.
It was ridiculously.
So yeah, from if I'm looking the same one you are, ages 17 to 35. We're 69% female.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. And then what happens in the next age block?
I mean, it's all the way down to 21%. It's just a huge
huge change.
Janae, you hire young athletic trainers. You know, you work in a collegiate setting where you're in a hiring. You both hire young athletic trainers and you teach young athletic trainers. Are you noticing anything along those trends? Do you see the young women that are you interviewing young women for these, you know, ambitious jobs? Do the students you get talk about wanting to have a job like yours one day? What do they talk about in terms of their goals? What are you seeing?
I mean, I definitely get students that talk about wanting to be in the same setting as I am. But I think it shifts when they start to look long term. I mean, I'll say right now, I have an individual on my staff that's a great athletic trainer. She's been doing it for several years, and she's looking to move to do something else. You know, time-wise, schedule-wise, she's getting married soon. Her husband's, or soon-to-be husband's, also an athletic trainer, and so they're looking to, you know, try change the dynamic of their family and that sort of thing. And she's going to be moving with him and his new job, and so she's going to look to move out of the profession. It's unfortunate, but that is something that definitely happens. And I hire young professionals that want to do this, but I hire young professionals that also don't see themselves being in this setting long term. You know, it's what I want to do here and now, but they may not want to do it in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Just because they have interest in starting a family and they don't see themselves as having the ability to juggle their family and that sort of thing, and also be in this type of role. So
I think that's really interesting. We're having some different kinds of conversations with our students, and I think that professionally, as we expand into different practice settings, it allows us to have conversations about, well, maybe you don't want to be an athletic trainer in the college setting long term, but it doesn't mean you have to change your career. Just change the setting in which you do it in. And I don't think that we had those same options 20 years ago.
100%.
Definitely not.
And so now with the invention or the starting of residencies and DAT programs, there's an actual career ladder that you can climb and still stay an athletic trainer. You don't have to go and do and be something else. Just do it in a different environment. Because really it's the college and university setting which is only about 25% of the membership right now, that has that kind of crazy lifestyle with it. And so what's the other 75% doing? They're practicing their trade in their profession in a variety of different settings, which I think is super exciting. I mean, we have a lot of students that are interested in what I would consider to be kind of alternative settings of the military and performing arts and things that just didn't exist years ago. I feel really
the job that I have, I wouldn't have imagined even what that was. You know, when I was in school, it was all about like the college and university setting. I thought I would do that. You know, I thought I would do that forever. And you know, I still miss it sometimes. It was fun, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, unless you make it to that head athletic trainer position, you know, I can't get I can't pay my rent with fun. So like, it gets a little tough, tough out there for us. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? Just a little bit about, and again, I didn't want to get too heavy here, but I was thinking about this the other day, in terms of, kind of all the Me Too stuff and the Time's Up stuff. And again, we're talking about a majority female profession, but that does, no matter what setting you're in, have a lot of interactions with males, have a lot of interaction with men in positions of power or influence. And I remember when I was a student, I don't have any like bad stories, but there's moments that were inappropriate. Like Jillian was talking about earlier, there's situations that are inappropriate. We hear stories like the Peyton Manning thing that happened in a training room, and I wasn't shocked at all to hear that. So is that something that you talk to your students about now? Like, because I don't remember talking about it other than like, hey, be professional, be appropriate. I just don't remember talking about like, hey, if this happens, do this. I just don't remember having a lot of those conversations. So is that something that you guys deal with now?
We do. We actually, as a campus, all of our graduate students, I can't speak to what they do in the undergraduate programs, but all of our graduate students in health sciences go through Title IX training. And so they understand that they're mandatory reporters. They also understand if something happens to them, what is the process here on campus. We're actually having another training session for faculty in our school this coming May. So I think it's on the forefront of everyone's minds. And so the conversations are happening and in more frequency than I've ever seen them happen.
But I just think that dynamic change is so important, just because, like we were talking about earlier, I feel like the attitude before would have been, if somebody approaches you, even if it's something as simple as somebody hits on you or somebody makes a move or, somebody says something. We had a team doctor at one of the colleges I was associated with. You wouldn't believe the stuff that we put up with. And it was just, oh, that's just how he is. But just that whole idea of, again, when you're a woman and you're in this profession or you're in that setting specifically, you don't want to make waves. You don't want to be, you don't want to be a problem. You don't want to be viewed as, you don't even kind of want people to think of you as, either being attractive or somebody who men are noticing, because that makes you a distraction and that makes you a problem. So just kind of trying to spin that around to being like, look, I'm just here doing my job. It's not my fault that this dude is kind of being this way. So I don't know, Janae, is there anything that you've run into there? You've been in the college setting for a long time now. I know we're talking a lot about college, but I do think that's a goal that a lot of young women have. So anything that you've got.
We've definitely, we don't have an athletic training program, but we get athletic training students from accredited programs. But we also have a large number of students that goes to our university that volunteer with us and work with us. And that's a conversation we have to have quite a bit about being mindful of your interactions with others. And, we understand your peers are the same level, but, the level of professionalism that we need to maintain. And it's difficult for them because, for the student athletes, they see this individual as someone who's their same age, and trying to get them to understand, these individuals may speak to you a certain way or say certain things because they see you as a peer and don't see you in this professional setting. And these are things you need to be mindful of and speak up about. Somebody's making you uncomfortable. If something happens, I preach, let us know. And I tell my students every year, my volunteer students and my athletic training students, if you have an issue with a coach, if you have an issue with a student athlete, let us know, tell us so we can address it immediately. Don't hold that information in, because we want to make sure that they're in a safe and comfortable environment. And the same things for my female staff. We've gone through the Title IX training, but also let them know, I've had an issue where a couple student athletes made jokes or said something about a staff member, and it was overheard and it made her very uncomfortable, or an athlete kind of touched her in a way or touched an individual in a way and made her uncomfortable. And, we took steps to make sure that she felt safe, and, it was addressed with that athlete, with the coaches, to make sure, they understood that wasn't appropriate behavior. But we want to make sure that, our students and our female staff are in a safe and comfortable environment and feel okay to speak up if, you know, something occurs. So
yeah, awesome.
It's really interesting as I am reflecting on this. I don't know if it's a maturity issue or we have conversations now that we didn't in the past. Because I can clearly remember in my first job a situation where I was asked to attend a meeting with our head athletic trainer and the provost. This was at a time when everybody did everything. And so, you know, you taught in a program, you traveled with a team, you did everything. And I was excited to be part of this meeting. I honestly don't even remember what it was about. And after the meeting was over, our male head athletic trainer made the comment that I was invited to the meeting because he thought the provost would be nicer if there was a woman in the room.
Yikes.
wow.
That did not go over well with the younger version of Jolene.
I don't know if he knows you very well. That might have been a mistake.
I've softened a lot over the years, believe it or not. But, you know, at 24,
motherhood does that to us, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. At 24, I was pretty pissed, and I called him to the mat on it. I told him, "Are you telling me that I have less value because I don't have a penis?"
Yes, Jolene.
And I don't know that I would say that now. I would, but I don't know if I would be so bold as to, you know, just call it out like that. But I think too, like, what else would I have done at that time? I don't know who in the world I would have gone to talk to about that because there weren't any other women.
Mm-hmm.
And the women, women that were part of the athletic department, I'm counting in my head, the vast majority of them were lesbians, and they would have been shunned if they would have said anything too.
A whole different type of discrimination there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a whole other category.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you know, my choice was in that moment to sit there and shut up and not say anything because I had nowhere to go. I had nobody to talk to about it because you just didn't have those conversations, especially in a private school setting where I was. And so I called him on it, and thank God there were no repercussions. But you know, I think about my colleagues and former students that have had to face different gendered experiences, or they say things, or there are assumptions that are gendered, and it makes me angry. You know, we've come a long way, but we still have so far to go. So far to go.
Yeah. Thank you, Jolene. That's an amazing perspective. Okay, so we have a little question here from the Sports Medicine Broadcast fans. And whichever one
people watching us?
I don't know. Apparently that might be happening. Don't worry about that. Nothing's happening. This is just a chat between gal pals. So knowing what you guys know now, you know, being in the profession as long as, you know, you've been in it, would you choose athletic training again? If you could go back and do it all over again, would you choose athletic training again, or would you see a different path for yourself? Maybe, you know, whether it be similar, you know, PA, PT, you know, that kind of thing, or maybe something completely different. Jolene is shaking her head. She
well, more to the response of would I do like PT or PA? No, I would not. That was never a conversation for me. I would definitely choose AT again. I think I would do some things a little bit differently along the way. Quite frankly, and I'm very upfront with people that want to go back and get an advanced degree that I would have delayed getting my doctorate.
Oh, really? Interesting. Talk about that.
Yeah, I would have. I put my name in the hat for a doctoral position just to see if somebody else thought I was ready. to pursue it. and they did. I said, okay.
I feel good when somebody believes in you like that. You want to go for it.
Yeah. But I wish that I had had more time, kind of boots on the ground, just really living in it. But at the same time, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunities that I've had in education, and the just the ability to influence something bigger than yourself is really powerful, and just really grateful for it. So I don't think that I wouldn't change the path that I'm on. I just wish that I had been boots on the ground longer.
Yeah, I think, you know, your career to me seems very like special and unique in that you have been doing the educational side of things for so long. I don't, and I'll sell us out. We used to kind of joke around here and there sometimes like, can you imagine Jolene in a pair of khaki shorts? Because I can. It feels like you've been wearing the business casual your whole career. Like you couldn't picture you with a fanny pack.
That's awesome.
Like you were doing, you know, Professor Henning just seemed like who you were always, you know, supposed to be. Now you had to be an athletic trainer first, and you were an athletic trainer to the core in terms of like what it means to be one and teaching us what that meant. But from just a completely different, you know, standpoint to us of a professionalism, I'm gonna kind of real quick story, NATA story. And I'm selling Janae and Val out hard here because and Jeff, I think we were sitting around, and we were all standing around talking, and we were just kind of observing folks walking through the exhibit hall and whatnot. And somebody might have made a comment along the lines of, we always pick on stuff that people wear, and so you might see somebody in jeans or flip flops, or their you know, khakis and a polo or whatever, and just kind of commenting on that. And I think somebody, I mean, it wasn't Janae, it would never be Janae. Somebody in the group was like, I want to wear flip flops, and I think I, being sarcastic, was like, well, why don't you? And I think it might have been Janae that said, she's like, because Jolene is around here somewhere, and she was she saw it wearing
that was probably me.
3, 4, 5 years after we graduated, and that was still ingrained in us that you just don't do that. And yes, we put kind of your face on it as the intimidating force that would keep us in line. But you taught us, you know, kind of how to represent ourselves in a way that sort of took us off the football field. You know, you're not coaches, you're somebody different, you know. And so I think that influence was really big. So I wanted to get that story in at some point.
Sarah, you say 3 or 5 years. It's 12 years now, and that is still a thing.
It's still true. No way. That would never happen. Nope.
I have to make sure my attire is Jolene approved.
Oh, that's so
funny. Today. That was for you. Same thing. Like, obviously, you've been very successful, so I kind of feel like I know your answer. But do you ever, you know, kind of go back and think, you know, about something you would do differently career-wise, knowing what you know now about being a woman in this profession?
Absolutely not. I love what I do. It's hard. It's a lot of work. But I love it. I love teaching, you know, the younger folks that want to be in this profession, the direction to go. I love when I get athletic training students that I, you know, can see as individuals that can be successful in this field and that want to learn and want to grow. And so I love when I have those opportunities to mentor those individuals and share my passion for athletic training with them. But absolutely not. I love it. I don't see myself in any other profession. I think I would probably get bored with any other profession. I love the dynamic nature of athletic training. So definitely not.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I you know, whenever a student will ask me, I'm interested in athletic training or PT, I'm not sure which way to go. And I'm like, well, there's, you know, do you want a nice set schedule that's 9 to 5, or do you want, you know, kind of excitement and change? And they both have their pros and cons, but I think that type of personality says a lot. I know for me, I think I might have liked to know a few more of my options now that I am in a clinical setting. I didn't even know what a PA was when I was an undergrad. So I think I would have maybe at least liked to know that that was a thing, just because I do see what some of them do now. And I'm like, oh, I think I could have done that if I might have, you know, known about it, you know, kind of earlier, been interested in it. But I think I would have always wanted to be an athletic trainer first, because I just think, you know, it's just such a unique perspective on what it means to take care of people, that I'll always be thankful, you know, that I have. And actually, and helps me a lot with what I do. There's a reason why, at least in Texas, a lot of the doctor's offices are bringing in athletic trainers in that kind of physician extender role, because we do just have that unique perspective of, kind of the feelings of the athlete, the interactions with their coaches. That's not something that a PA or a doctor has any experience with typically. So they value us as that bridge, even if we're not, kind of out there anymore. So I think that's awesome. Another question here. Okay, so as a female athletic trainer, I love this. Do you feel like you have to be more professional to get the same amount of respect from your peers? Do you feel like, and then we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I like that phrasing of it. Jolene, when I talk about you really teaching us to that professionalism, that started in the classroom. Like, you didn't even really put up with mess in the classroom setting, if we were goofing around too much. You almost kind of demanded that. Guys, Jolene was awesome. She was fun. We laughed a lot. Everything I'm saying about her being, quote, demanding is all the appreciation, honestly. But yeah, I mean, you kind of gave us that perspective early. So, but do you feel like as a female athletic trainer, as a female in your profession, that you have to almost kind of be more than the average, than a guy would have to put up with as far as being professional? I see nodding, but you have to say stuff.
I would definitely say yes. I mean, I think that standard should not be there. Of course, that's a double standard, but I do think there are instances where we have to hold ourselves a little bit higher, at a little higher bar than maybe some of our male counterparts, just to attain the same level of respect that they might. Because I think there's a level of respect given.
Just professional, right? If we could all, everybody be cool, everybody be professional. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And I think not just in athletic training, I mean, kind of sitting in the higher education seat, I feel like I have to be extra professional in what I'm doing, even to the point of I'm extremely aware of how I dress, and where a male colleague in the same position as a department chair could wear blue jeans and, a fleece vest or whatever. Yeah. If I did that, it would be extremely casual looking, and I know I would be perceived in a particular way. Mm-hmm. So I think it's women in general, not specific to athletic training, that we have to be kind of overt in our professionalism.
Mm-hmm. I'll take it from the perspective even of that high school setting. I felt like a lot of my, like my male partner at the high school I worked at, in different high schools, like a football coach is a respected person on that campus. So if a male athletic trainer wears his gym shorts and his football shirt and looks like a football coach, he doesn't lose any respect for that. Mm-hmm. He's, because that already is a respected, position on that campus. Whereas I felt like if I walked around in my gym shorts and my t-shirt, I looked like a PE teacher, or I just basically looked like I didn't care to go to work. So I felt like even if the guy that does the exact same job that I do was dressed that way, I felt like I still at least had to put on a khaki, had to be tucked in, just had to look separate from those guys, because it just wouldn't be, you just don't get the same amount of respect. Mm-hmm. So in that, even in those like kind of simple, superficial ways, I sort of felt like I had to kind of step that up a little bit there. But at the end of the day, I feel like that 55%. There are a lot of amazing women in this profession. More and more examples of kind of how we can all advocate for ourselves better. Become kind of get over that boys club persona that athletic training has had for so long, continue to sort of chip away at that. I know I want to give, again, Jolene's a huge mentor for me. I also want to give shout out to, Carrie Strong. She's somebody who's been a friend and an influence on me since I first set foot in an athletic training room in 2001. Is there anybody that you guys want to give quick shouts out to, as far as, Jolene, you mentioned your program director, anybody else you want to kind of give a quick shout out to as a lady influencer in your career?
Yeah, so this is an influencer who doesn't even know that she's influenced me in this way. And so Katie Walsh Flanagan, who actually sits on our NAT PTA board of directors right now. She's our District 3 director. When I first moved back to North Carolina from my doctoral work in Indiana, I met Katie, and I was kind of taken aback by her, because here was this, you know, fit, attractive woman that was like really well connected and could play the good old boy network really well. And I was just like, who is this woman? Like, truly, she doesn't know this. And now it's being broadcasted. So that's fabulous. But in reality, I can clearly remember being at a district meeting and a male colleague making a comment, a derogatory comment about her, because she was able to connect with members of this kind of good old boy network in the South here. And I kind of paused and thought, well, wait a minute, that's not fair. And over the years, I've watched her be so successful in navigating that and never compromising herself, even though, you know, I heard comments, you know, again, just derogatory things, because here again, you have this fit, attractive woman who's going places. Well, good for her. It's not because she's fit and attractive. It's because she's doing a damn good job.
Yep.
And I just have kind of watched, like I said, watched her kind of progress over the years. And now here she is sitting on the board of directors, and she's somebody that makes things happen. And it is not for 1 second because she is fit and attractive. It's because she is a woman of integrity, and she has worked her tail off and advocated for not just women, but for athletic training as a whole profession. And so I'll give a huge shout out to her, even though I've never told her that. Now someone will pass it along to her through this.
Yeah, we'll
so, Katie, thanks for all the work you
do. Very cool. Awesome. Janae?
I would say, you know, we've kind of spoke a little bit, but I would say in addition to Jolene, also Sandy Schultz, I think
we had
great mentors, I think, in our program when we were there, and just kind of a high level of demonstration of what it means to be professionals in this field, holding ourselves to a very high standard. And like I said, I was fortunate to be able to leave there and go to Davidson College and have Beth Hayford as a head athletic trainer there, as a mentor as well. And, you know, saw her, you know, unwavering in the years that I was there in leading that program and that department, and doing it flawlessly with mostly male counterparts in that department. And so, you know, she stood her ground. She was always very firm. And so that was a great demonstration for me of what it was like to be a head athletic trainer in a collegiate, Division I collegiate setting, as a female, and how to navigate that, and being someone that I could call when I first took the head position at A&T, and being able to, you know, ask questions and get her thoughts on things. So I've been very fortunate to have some very good female mentors in this field.
Well, we have a couple more questions from, it turns out a high school athletic training class is watching us. That's where these fun questions are coming from. I know you mentioned you've got a piece out here pretty soon, and I don't want to hold you up, and we just have a couple more questions. But yes. I did want to kind of give you kind of the last word for you. You know, again, you've been super successful. You've got a position that I think a lot of young athletic trainers would aspire to. Is there just anything that you would give advice-wise to, you know, a high school student that's starting out, a college student starting out, when you're thinking about the structure of your career and how you want to kind of poise yourself, you know, to get into kind of where you've ended up? You know, should that start now, you know, as those young people, and how would you kind of recommend that they sort of structure their career to roughly end up where you've had? And that's both from your personal, I know you said you kind of fell into your position, but you've seen a lot since, you know, you've seen a lot of other careers. You have a lot of colleagues, you know, who've had similar paths. So whether it be how you interview, you know, kind of how you choose your positions, any advice that you would give, you know, a young professional, you know, kind of developing their career?
I think for someone who's interested or think they're interested in athletic training, my biggest thing is learn more about it. I think that's one of the biggest things for students is maybe they jump in and not really know what it's about. So take the time to seek out opportunities to observe and to learn and to see what athletic trainers do, and not just the collegiate setting, but all settings. See what that is before you decide to make that decision to enter into a program and get that formal athletic training education. And then find mentors as well. If you're really interested in it, find someone who's willing to teach you about this profession and what it means to be in it. I'm not big on, being fixated on one specific goal, or, I want to be an athletic trainer at the Division I level for a big football school. Make sure you keep your options open, because you may find that you fall in love with something else. And I tell my students that now. Okay, this may be what you want to do, or you think you want to do, but at this point in time, when you have those options, look at variety. Try to seek out other opportunities. If nothing else, those other opportunities may help you develop skills that will benefit you when you do reach that goal, so that you don't just stay on that one track for many years. But so really, learn more about it, seek out a mentor that's willing to, bring you along and teach you about the field. So.
All right. Do we need to say goodbye to you, Janae?
Probably. I got to get on the road for this conference.
All right, girl. Thank you so much for doing this. I'll see you in Vegas.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's good speaking with y'all.
Bye, Janae.
Bye, Jolene.
Okay. All right. So at least one more question from our high school students. And this is actually something I come across quite a bit. So our high school kids love to tape. I mean, that is and I remember being a young student, that was like the deal.
It's fun.
It is still fun. It's still fun. It was always fun. Being good at it is fun. There's a lot of value in that. So one of the questions from the students is, when you get to a clinic setting, when you kind of get outside of that traditional setting, do you still get to tape? Because they don't want to lose that. That's kind of like the first awesome skill, that you learn. I know for me, if all I did was work in my concussion center, I probably wouldn't get to do that. But what I do is I work as a contract or a PRN athletic trainer, because I really want to keep that contact with, what I fell in love with in the first place, that sideline work, interacting with athletes on the field, not just after they get hurt. Keeping that perspective. So that's actually a big part of the reason. I mean, a little extra money is nice, but at the same time, but really what I'm doing the contract stuff for is to kind of maintain that contact with my first love, which is that sideline athletic training. So yes, lots of taping in that setting. You get to do a lot of that stuff. And Jolene, you're in the educational setting, but you got to teach these guys how to do that stuff.
That's
so
right. Yeah,
you maintain that contact with it.
Yep. So teaching and, assisting with events. Like we've got a big track meet next weekend that the faculty help with. And so just trying to keep our hands in it as much as we can. Yep.
Absolutely. The only thing that I ever say I don't do anymore is I don't pick up coolers anymore. That's the only thing that I really try to get away from. But literally everything else, I love making a good ice bath. I love taping. Like I still really enjoy all that stuff. But I also want to, give you guys that perspective of that is a very valuable skill that you already have and that you'll always have. But there is so much more that you're going to be able to offer later on. But yes, while taping is fun, just the skills, the perspective, the relationship skills, everything that you're going to develop as being a young woman in that setting, dealing with athletes, dealing with your colleagues, your co-athletic trainers, your supervisors, all of those different interactions are going to make you valuable in so many more ways than being able to tape an ankle in under a minute. So just kind of keep that in mind. So maintain that true love. That's where we all started. We all still have a soft spot for it, but just, continue to see all the different ways that you're going to be valuable as a professional. So, hey, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm here.
You got anything else for us, buddy?
That's the questions there I've got. I definitely want to make sure we get the contact information for you guys before you do that. So, I mean, if you're ready to wrap it up, I can close it out.
I think so. I mean, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. Jolene, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah.
You know how much I just love chatting with you. You're just somebody whose perspective I've just always enjoyed getting. I probably have like 10 other questions we could do, but I think we did pretty good here. So Jeremy likes to know, if you, again, obviously you're a Facebooker. So, but if there's,
I gave it up for Lent. So for 40 days, I won't be on there. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. So if folks who hear this do have questions, would like to reach out, what would be a good way for them to
just
do that?
jhenning@highpoint.edu.
Okay. And do you want to give shout outs to your little girls?
Yes. So my little girls aren't so little anymore. So,
I know, it's crazy. Oh, man.
Yeah, Maddie Jean is 10 and a half, and Sadie is 5 and a half. And so next year we will have a middle schooler and a kindergartner.
My goodness gracious.
Yes,
that's awesome.
It's going to be crazy. So Sarah, can I just thank you? I wish I could have said something to Janae too before she left. This has been kind of like a proud mama moment, like watching the girls, like, you both have gone so far in your careers, and it just warms my heart to see how successful y'all have been and how happy you are. And so good work.
Keep it up. For you to be proud of me feels good. So I'll so yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And will we see you in Las Vegas?
I'm not going to be in Vegas, unfortunately, because I know we're still on the podcast, but that's okay. We're opening a restaurant.
What? Oh, good for Keith. So Jolene's husband is a chef. So that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it will open early June. And so I just kind of can't be away during that time. So
okay. Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
Living the dream. I love it. You guys, athletic trainers, you don't even know. You don't even know where you're going to end up. There's crazy places it can take you. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, happy Athletic Training Month to everybody. And obviously happy International Women's Day. What a great way to spend it. So Jeremy, thank you so much. Oh, for me, as I've mentioned in the previous podcast, you can go to my Instagram and Twitter. You'll be sorely disappointed when you get there. There's not a lot going on. But if you want to see like the food I eat or the places I travel or 5Ks I run, all of that is there at Sarah Gill ATC on Instagram and Twitter. Any questions, as far as, anything really. So my full name, Sarah Gill, that's SARAHGILL at texashealth.org.
Very good. Again, this episode is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/women's day. My partners for the podcast, Dragonfly Max, they're going to be sponsoring the booth there at NATA Hoist. You can use the code THESMB to score a free case of water or free case of Hoist whenever you order one. Myotech, we just did a Facebook Live with them this week. And then Frio Hydration is going to be hooking us up here at Pasadena High School with a new unit as part of their sponsorship for the broadcast. Last question is there something that you would like to say to your male counterparts as a female athletic trainer?
Ooh.
Go, Jolene.
Wow. That's a great question. That really is a great question. Thank you for asking.
That was my wife that came up with the wording of that. Mine was much less.
I think that
that's a good one.
Yeah, be mindful and be an advocate.
Absolutely.
Be mindful of what you say, how you say it. Be mindful of the implicit bias that is present in all of us in different ways. Be mindful of we all need to be mindful of our privilege, because we all have different privilege, whether we recognize it or not, and how that impacts those of us around us in every interaction that we have. And advocate for change on so many different levels. I know we're focusing on women in athletic training today, but collectively, I would say to all athletic trainers, advocate for change. Advocate for increased access to healthcare, advocate for whether that be more athletic trainers in schools or just being aware of the health disparities that exist in our society, and be a change agent.
Yeah, absolutely. I would even just be as plain as hire women, interview and hire women, interview and hire, people of color. Like if we look at that salary survey, we see that a lot of that discrepancy has to be that, while there's more women in the profession as a whole, there's more men in positions of
hiring
power. Hiring. Authority, leadership, seniority. So you've got a lot of power to, kind of help, kind of bridge that gap a little bit by who you hire and who you bring in. I feel like every professional setting is strengthened by diversity. Like the more the different voices you have in the room, the better product you're going to get. Whether it's again an athletic training team, whether it's we always hear about creativity, Hollywood, things like that. In business, the more voices you have, the more perspective you have, the better staff you're going to have. So I would just obviously encourage the big dogs out there to kind of and I think that's its own form of advocacy. So and then once they're in your athletic training room, just be the example, be a great example of how the young men who come into your athletic training room should behave, should act. If you're that example, it just makes it that much easier for everybody to fall in line. If you can avoid that confusion of it's okay for me to say that because we know each other. Just avoid that. Just try to keep it professional. It's a fun profession. It absolutely is, but there still need to be kind of standards that we maintain to just keep it a comfortable and safe environment for everybody. So yeah, those two things, both kind of helping your sisters up the ladder, and then once we get there, making it a great environment for everybody. I think that's all we can sort of ask anybody who's in that position of a little bit of privilege. So that's all I got. Thank you for that question. That was awesome. Your wife is cool, Jeremy. That's a smart lady.
Go ahead.
I said that's a smart lady.
My mission, I have 3 young boys, and it's not just to raise like professional athletes or something. It's to raise men who positively impact the world around them. And so these conversations help me as a man shape them in a way that I don't know. I just grew up, I wasn't very sensitive to people around me. And so hopefully they'll take that from their mom more than they will from me. And again, these conversations help me shape the way that I interact with people, which will also shape the way that I interact with them. So I want to give a shout out to the Smithson Valley athletic trainers there. That I know that they were watching live, and Thomas Petmecki over there was texting in some questions. So thanks for joining us live. Sarah, fantastic job. I might have to just retire and let you take over.
Let's do it again sometime, man. It's fun.
This is sports.
All my friends.
There you go.
Yeah.
sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/Women's Day. We'll have some of the notes and the links. And then for Jeremy, Dr. Jolene Henning, Janae Fletcher, who had a checkout earlier, Sarah Gill, that is a wrap. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Oh, that was fun.
That was fun.
Thanks, Jolene.